The thunder of hooves echoed through the Wyoming Territory as Zachary Reed's gang fled into the distance, leaving behind a smoldering homestead and a devastated young woman standing in the ashes of what had once been her life. Zara Lawson's chestnut hair whipped around her tear-streaked face as she fell to her knees among the charred remains of her father's ranch, her slim fingers clutching at the blackened wood that had just hours before been the only home she'd ever known. The year was 1883, and the great expansion westward had brought with it not only the promise of opportunity, but the harsh reality of lawlessness that plagued the frontier. For Zara, 22 years old and newly orphaned after her father's death from pneumonia just weeks earlier, the destruction of her home was the final blow in a series of tragedies that had befallen her. "Miss, are you hurt?" The deep voice startled her, and she turned to see a tall figure silhouetted against the setting sun. He dismounted from a magnificent Palomino stallion, the spurs on his boots jingling as his feet hit the ground. "They're gone," she whispered, her voice raw from crying and from the smoke she'd inhaled trying to salvage what little she could from the fire. "They took everything?" The stranger approached cautiously, and as he drew closer, Zara could see he was a cowboy in his late 20s, with sun-bronzed skin and eyes the color of summer sage. A dusty Stetson was pulled low over his forehead, and a bandana hung loosely around his neck. "My name's Travis James," he said, extending a calloused hand to help her up. "I saw the smoke from miles away. Who did this?" Zara accepted his hand, but winced as she stood, her body aching from exhaustion and grief. "Zachary Reed and his men. My father borrowed money from him before he died. When I couldn't pay it back, Reed said he'd take the land instead." Her voice hardened. "I told him I'd die before I'd give him my father's legacy, so he decided to take it by force." Travis's jaw tightened as his eyes surveyed the destruction. The main house was reduced to smoldering timbers, the barn partially collapsed, and the corrals empty. "Where will you go?" he asked quietly. Zara looked around at the devastation, the reality of her situation hitting her anew. "I don't know," she admitted, her voice barely audible. "I have no family, no money. He took my home." Travis was silent for a long moment, his gaze fixed on the horizon where the last of the sun's rays were disappearing. When he turned back to her, his decision was made. "Then you'll live in mine forever," he said, the words simple but weighted with a promise that neither of them fully understood yet. "I don't accept charity, Mr. James," Zara said, lifting her chin despite the tears that threatened to fall again. "It's not charity," Travis replied. "My ranch is 3 hours' ride from here. I need help running it, someone to cook, keep the books, tend to the garden. It's honest work, and you'll have a roof over your head and food in your belly." Zara hesitated, searching his face for any sign of deception. In the Wild West, a woman alone had few options, and fewer still that didn't lead to ruin. "Why would you help a stranger?" Travis's eyes softened. "Because 7 years ago, I was the one standing in the ashes of my family's home after a group of rustlers burned it to the ground. Someone gave me a chance when I had nothing. I'm just passing on the favor." As night fell, they salvaged what little remained of Zara's belongings: a trunk containing her mother's wedding dress, a few photographs, her father's pocket watch, and a small leather pouch of family heirlooms that had been hidden beneath a loose floorboard. Travis secured them to his horse, then helped Zara mount behind him. As they rode away from the ruins of her past, Zara kept her eyes forward, refusing to look back. She didn't know what awaited her at Travis James's ranch, but as his steady heartbeat thumped against her palms where they rested on his back, she allowed herself to feel something she'd thought lost forever in the fire: hope. The journey to Travis's ranch was made largely in silence, broken only by the rhythmic hoofbeats of his horse and occasional directions when they changed course. Zara, exhausted from the day's traumas, found herself drifting in and out of sleep, her forehead occasionally bumping against Travis's broad back. "We're almost there," Travis said as they crested a hill just as dawn was breaking. Below them, nestled in a verdant valley with a creek running through it, sat a modest but well-maintained ranch. A 2-story house with a wide porch stood at its center, flanked by a large barn, several corrals, and a bunkhouse. Cattle grazed in the distance, and smoke curled lazily from the chimney. "The rocking J," Travis said with quiet pride. "It's not much, but it's mine." As they approached, a stocky man with graying hair emerged from the bunkhouse, squinting suspiciously at the second rider. "That's Oscar," Travis explained. "My foreman. Been with me since the beginning." "Boss," Oscar called out as they rode into the yard. "Didn't expect you back so soon. Who's your friend?" Travis dismounted and helped Zara down, her legs unsteady after the long ride. "Oscar, this is Miss Zara Lawson. Her place was burned out by Zachary Reed and his gang. She'll be staying with us for a while." Oscar's weathered face softened with sympathy. "Reed's been causing trouble all over the territory. Sheriff seems powerless to stop him." He tipped his hat to Zara. "Madam, welcome to the Rocking J." Travis led Zara toward the main house. "Let's get you settled. You must be exhausted." The interior of the house was surprisingly comfortable, though decidedly masculine in its sparse furnishings. A large stone fireplace dominated the main room, with a worn leather sofa and 2 armchairs arranged around it. A dining table stood near the kitchen, and Zara glimpsed a narrow staircase leading to the second floor. "It's not fancy," Travis said, suddenly self-conscious. "The previous owner was a bachelor, and I haven't had much reason to change things." "It's perfect," Zara replied honestly. After the events of the previous day, any safe harbor seemed like luxury. Travis showed her to a small bedroom on the second floor. It was simply furnished with a bed, dresser, and washstand, but the window overlooked the valley, and morning sunlight streamed through clean curtains. "Get some rest," he said, lingering in the doorway. "There's a washroom at the end of the hall. When you're ready, come down for breakfast." Left alone, Zara sat heavily on the edge of the bed, the events of the past 24 hours crashing over her like a wave. Her home, her inheritance, her plans for the future, all gone in a matter of hours. And now she was here, in the home of a man she'd just met, accepting his generosity because she had nowhere else to turn. She should have been terrified, or at the very least, wary. Yet something about Travis James inspired trust. Perhaps it was the quiet dignity in his bearing, or the fact that he'd offered her work rather than simply charity, preserving what little pride she had left. After washing away the soot and grime of the previous day, Zara changed into one of the 2 dresses she'd managed to save from the fire. It was a simple blue cotton day dress, worn at the hems, but clean. She braided her hair and pinched some color into her pale cheeks before making her way downstairs. She found Travis in the kitchen, his sleeves rolled up as he fried bacon in a cast-iron skillet. He looked up as she entered, a smile warming his face. "Feeling better?" "Much, thank you," she replied, self-consciously smoothing her dress. "Can I help with anything?" Travis motioned to the coffee pot. "You can pour if you like. Cups are in that cabinet." As they worked side by side, preparing a simple breakfast of bacon, eggs, and biscuits, Zara found herself studying her host. In the morning light, she could see his features more clearly, the strong line of his jaw shadowed with stubble. The tiny lines at the corners of his eyes that hinted at a man who smiled often, the small scar above his right eyebrow that spoke of a life lived actively. "How long have you had this ranch?" she asked as they sat down to eat. 5 years, Travis replied, passing her a plate. "Worked as a ranch hand for a couple years after I lost my family's place, saved every penny. Then this property came up for sale when old Tom Henderson died without heirs. It was run down, but the land was good. And now," pride flickered across his face, "now we've got 200 head of cattle, some of the finest horses in the territory, and enough savings to weather a bad year if it comes." He hesitated, then added, "It's a good life, but it's not always an easy one." Zara nodded, understanding the unspoken warning in his words. Ranch life was demanding, especially for a woman raised in town, as she had been before her father moved them to the homestead 3 years ago. "I'm not afraid of hard work, Mr. James," she said firmly. "My father taught me to keep books, and while I may not be the best cook, I can learn. I can also sew, garden, and I'm good with animals." Travis smiled, a genuine one that reached his eyes. "Call me Travis, and I believe you, Miss Lawson. I wouldn't have brought you here if I didn't think you were made of strong stuff." "Zara," she corrected, "if I'm to live in your home, we should at least be on a first-name basis." "Zara," he repeated, and something in the way he said her name sent an unexpected warmth through her chest. The days that followed fell into a rhythm as Zara found her place in the life of the Rocking J. Mornings were spent cooking for Travis and the ranch hands, afternoons devoted to housekeeping and gardening. To her surprise, Travis invited her to review the ranch's books, valuing her education and head for figures. The ranch hands Oscar, a young cowboy named Liam, and a taciturn Mexican vaquero called Miguel were initially wary of the new addition to their household, but Zara's cooking and cheerful demeanor soon won them over. A week after her arrival, Zara was hanging laundry in the yard when the sound of approaching riders caught her attention. Travis, who had been mending a fence nearby, straightened up, his hand moving instinctively to the revolver at his hip. 3 men rode into the yard, their horses kicking up dust. Zara felt her blood run cold as she recognized the leader, Zachary Reed himself. A tall man with cold eyes and an expensive black coat despite the heat. "Well, well," Reed called out, his voice carrying across the yard. "If it isn't the Lawson girl, heard you might be hiding out here." Travis moved to stand between Zara and the newcomers. "Miss Lawson is under my protection now, Reed. Whatever business you had with her is concluded." Reed's laugh was without humor. "Business is concluded when I say it is, James. The girl's father owed me money, and I aim to collect one way or another." "Her father's debt died with him," Travis replied evenly, though Zara could see the tension in his shoulders. "And you've already taken more than was owed by burning down her home." "The land was collateral," Reed said dismissively, "and since she refused to sign it over properly, I had to take matters into my own hands." His gaze shifted to Zara, who stood trembling but defiant. "But there are other ways she could settle the debt." Travis's hand tightened on his gun. "Get off my property, Reed. Miss Lawson stays here." Reed studied Travis for a long moment, then smiled thinly. "For now, but this isn't over, James." He turned his horse, but called over his shoulder, "I always collect what I'm owed, one way or another." As the riders disappeared down the road, Zara realized she'd been holding her breath. Travis turned to her, concern etched on his face. "Are you all right?" She nodded, though her hands still trembled. "I knew he wouldn't just let it go. My father borrowed $500 from him last winter when the cattle fell sick. He was supposed to repay it in the spring, but he passed before he could," Travis finished softly. "Did your father leave any debts besides Reed's?" Zara shook her head. "No, he was always careful. But the medical bills for his care took most of our savings, and the ranch wasn't turning a profit yet." She bit her lip. "I should go. I've brought my troubles to your doorstep." "You're not going anywhere," Travis said firmly, surprising himself with the vehemence in his voice. "Reed's a bully who preys on people when they're vulnerable. Half the debts he collects are manufactured or inflated." "But he'll come back," Zara protested. "He's dangerous." "So am I, when someone threatens what's mine," Travis replied, the words coming out before he could consider them. Zara looked up at him, startled by the possessive statement. "I'm not yours, Travis." He flushed slightly, running a hand through his hair. "I meant the ranch, and the peace we have here. Reed and men like him think they can take whatever they want because they have money and guns. I've spent my life standing against men like that." That evening, after the ranch hands had retired to the bunkhouse, Zara found Travis sitting alone on the porch, a glass of whiskey in his hand, as he stared out at the star-filled sky. "May I join you?" she asked hesitantly. He nodded, indicating the empty chair beside him. They sat in comfortable silence for a few minutes before Travis spoke. "I've been thinking about Reed," he said. "We need to go to town tomorrow and speak with Sheriff Parker. If Reed's been running this kind of scheme on others in the territory, maybe we can build a case against him." "He has the sheriff in his pocket," Zara replied bitterly. "My father tried to complain when Reed first started threatening him. Parker did nothing." Travis frowned. "Then we'll speak to Judge Wilson. He's an honest man from what I've heard." Zara turned to look at him, her expression troubled. "Why are you doing this, Travis? You've already done more than enough by taking me in. Why risk making an enemy like Reed?" Travis was quiet for a long moment, swirling the amber liquid in his glass. "When I was 16, he finally said, my family's ranch was targeted by rustlers. My father stood up to them, refused to be intimidated. One night, they came back while we were sleeping, set fire to the house." His voice grew tight. "My parents and little sister didn't make it out. I was only alive because I'd fallen asleep in the barn after tending a sick calf." Zara's hand flew to her mouth in horror. Travis, I'm so sorry. He nodded, acknowledging her sympathy. The point is, I know what it's like to have everything taken from you by men who think their greed gives them the right. I couldn't save my family then, but I can help you now. Without thinking, Zara reached out and laid her hand over his. You already have, she said softly. You've given me more than just shelter. You've given me hope. Travis looked down at their joined hands, then back up at her face, silver in the moonlight. Something unspoken passed between them, a current of understanding that went beyond words. The next morning, they rode into the town of White Ridge together. It was a typical frontier settlement, a main street lined with false-fronted buildings, including a general store, saloon, blacksmith, and small hotel. The sheriff's office sat at one end of the street, a weathered building with a small jail attached. As they tied their horses to the hitching post outside, Zara felt a ripple of unease. She hadn't been back to town since her father's funeral, and the familiar sights brought back painful memories. Travis seemed to sense her discomfort, placing a reassuring hand on the small of her back as they entered the sheriff's office. Sheriff Parker, a portly man with a bushy mustache, looked up from his desk with evident surprise. Miss Lawson, he said, rising to his feet, heard about your troubles. Terrible business. Is that why you've done nothing about it? Travis asked bluntly. Parker's expression hardened. And you are? Travis James. I own the Rocking J Ranch. Travis removed his hat, but his stance remained confrontational. Miss Lawson's home was burned to the ground by Zachary Reed and his men. Yesterday, Reed showed up at my property, threatening her. Parker sighed, settling back in his chair. Look, Mr. James, I sympathize with Miss Lawson's situation. Truly I do. But without evidence. Without evidence? Zara interrupted, anger flaring. My home is in ashes. Reed threatened me in front of my father's friends when I refused to sign over the deed. Everyone in town knows what he did. Knowing and proving are two different things in a court of law, Parker replied, though he had the grace to look uncomfortable. Reed claims your father signed the land over to him to cover his debts. Says the fire was an unfortunate accident while his men were taking possession. Travis's jaw tightened. And you believe that? Parker spread his hands. It doesn't matter what I believe. Reed has paperwork a loan agreement with your father's signature, Miss Lawson, and a clause saying the land would serve as collateral. May I see this agreement? Travis asked. Parker hesitated, then pulled a document from his desk drawer. Travis examined it carefully, then handed it to Zara. Is this your father's signature? He asked quietly. Zara studied the paper, her brow furrowed. It looks like it, she admitted. But my father would never agree to these terms. The interest rate alone is criminal. Predatory maybe, but not illegal, Parker said. I'm sorry, but legally, Reed is within his rights. Travis took the paper back, folding it and placing it in his pocket despite Parker's protests. We'll be taking this to Judge Wilson, he said firmly. And in the meantime, I'm putting you on notice, Sheriff. If Reed or his men come near Miss Lawson again, I'll hold you personally responsible. As they left the sheriff's office, Zara felt a mixture of despair and anger. He's not going to help us, she said as they walked toward the general store. Reed probably pays him off. Then we'll help ourselves, Travis replied grimly. First we need supplies, then we'll pay a visit to Judge Wilson at his home outside town. As they shopped for provisions, Zara was acutely aware of the curious glances and whispers that followed them. Word of her situation and her new living arrangements had clearly spread through the small community. People are talking, she murmured to Travis as he paid for their purchases. Let them, he replied with a shrug. We know the truth of matters. As they loaded their supplies onto their horses, a woman approached them, Madeline Turner, the widow who ran the town's small boarding house. Zara, dear, she said, her kind face creased with concern. I heard what happened. Why didn't you come to me? I'd have given you a room. It all happened so quickly, Zara explained, touched by the woman's kindness. And Mr. James was there when I needed help. Mrs. Turner gave Travis an appraising look. Well, it's good you weren't alone, but a young woman living under the roof of a single man. People talk, you know. With all due respect, madam, Travis said politely but firmly, Miss Lawson's reputation is safe with me. She works for me as a housekeeper, nothing more. The words were exactly what should have been said to reassure Mrs. Turner, and yet Zara felt a curious disappointment at hearing their relationship defined in such practical terms. Over the weeks they'd spent together, she'd begun to feel something more than gratitude toward Travis, something that made her heart beat faster when he smiled at her across the dinner table, or when their hands accidentally touched as they worked together. Judge Wilson's home was a modest but well-kept house at the edge of town. Unlike Sheriff Parker, the judge, a tall, spare man with intelligent eyes, listened to their story with genuine concern. "Reed's been skirting the law for years," Wilson said as they sat in his study. "But he's careful, and he's got friends in high places." He examined the loan document Travis had taken from Parker. "This interest rate is usurious, but not technically illegal in the territory yet. However," he pointed to a clause in the fine print. "This states that, in the event of default, Reed would gain ownership of the property described herein. But there's no specific description of your father's land, just a vague reference to all property held by the borrower." Hope flickered in Zara's chest. "What does that mean?" "It means Reed's claim to your land is shaky at best. A good lawyer could argue that this agreement is too vague to be enforceable, and burning down your home to force you off the property is definitely criminal." Travis leaned forward eagerly. "So, you can help us?" Wilson sighed, removing his spectacles to polish them. "I can try, but you need to understand what you're up against. Reed has connections all the way to the territorial capital, and he doesn't take kindly to opposition." "Neither do I," Travis replied firmly. "We'll do whatever it takes." "Very well," Wilson said, replacing his glasses. "I'll file a complaint against Reed for arson and intimidation. In the meantime, be careful, both of you." The sun was setting as they rode back to the ranch, casting long shadows across the trail. They traveled in companionable silence for a while, each lost in their own thoughts. "Do you think it will work?" Zara finally asked. "Going against Reed legally?" Travis considered the question seriously. "It might. Judge Wilson seems like an honest man, but even if it doesn't, we've put Reed on notice that you're not alone anymore, that he can't just take what he wants without consequences." Zara studied Travis's profile, gilded by the setting sun. "You've risked so much for me," she said softly. "Why?" Travis reined his horse to a stop, turning to look at her directly. "When I first found you standing in the ashes of your home, something inside me shifted," he admitted. "I knew I couldn't just ride away and leave you there, and these past weeks having you at the ranch—" He paused, searching for words. "It's like the house was just a building before, but now it's becoming a home." The intensity in his gaze made Zara's breath catch. "Travis! The crack of a rifle shot cut through the air, and Travis jerked in his saddle, a cry of pain escaping him as he clutched his shoulder. Zara screamed as a second shot kicked up dirt near her horse's hooves, causing both animals to rear in panic. "Ride!" Travis shouted, his face contorted with pain as he struggled to control his frightened mount. "Back to the ranch, now!" Zara hesitated only a second before spurring her horse forward, Travis following close behind as more shots rang out from the trees along the road. They galloped at breakneck speed, not slowing until the ranch buildings came into view. Oscar and the other hands rushed out at the sound of their approach, faces grim as they helped Travis from his horse. Blood had soaked through his shirt and jacket, but he waved off their concerns. "Bushwhackers," he explained tersely as they helped him into the house. "On the road from town. Reed's men, I'd wager." Zara followed anxiously as they settled Travis in his bedroom. "I'll fetch the doctor," Oscar said, but Travis shook his head. "No time. They could be coming here next. Get the men ready." His eyes found Zara's, steady despite the pain. "The medical supplies are in the kitchen cabinet. Can you—" "Of course," she replied, already moving to gather what she needed. The bullet had gone clean through Travis's shoulder, missing any vital areas but leaving a painful wound that needed cleaning and bandaging. Zara worked methodically, her hands steady despite her inner turmoil as she tended to him. "You should have let me go to Mrs. Turner's," she said, her voice thick with unshed tears. "This wouldn't have happened if I hadn't brought my troubles to your door." Travis caught her wrist as she finished bandaging him, his grip surprisingly strong. "Listen to me, Zara. This isn't your fault. Reed is a predator, and he would have kept coming after you no matter where you went." his expression softened. "And selfishly, I'm glad you came here. These weeks with you have been... I've never..." He struggled to find the words, but Zara understood the sentiment behind them. Impulsively, she leaned down and pressed her lips gently to his, a brief, tender kiss that conveyed what neither of them could quite express aloud. When she pulled back, Travis's eyes were wide with surprise, but a slow smile spread across his face. "If I'd known getting shot would earn me that, I'd have done it weeks ago," he murmured. Zara laughed despite herself, relief and something deeper making her lightheaded. "Don't you dare joke about such things," she scolded, but her hand gently caressed his cheek. The tender moment was interrupted by Oscar's return. "Ranch is secure, boss," he reported. "Miguel and Liam are keeping watch. No sign of trouble yet." Travis nodded, struggling to sit up, despite Zara's protests. "We need to prepare. If Reed's men attacked us on the road, they might be bold enough to come here next." "You're in no condition to fight," Zara insisted. "She's right, boss," Oscar agreed. "We can handle things. You need to rest." Travis reluctantly conceded, but insisted on keeping his revolver close at hand. As night fell, the ranch was transformed into a fortress, with the hands taking shifts to keep watch. Zara refused to leave Travis's side, dozing in a chair beside his bed. She was awakened just before dawn by the sound of approaching riders. Travis was already alert, sitting up in bed with his gun in hand. "Stay here," he ordered as he struggled to his feet, grimacing with pain. "You're not going out there," Zara protested, blocking his path. "You'll tear your wound open." Before he could argue further, Oscar appeared in the doorway, his expression grim. "It's Reed," he confirmed, "and he's brought a small army with him, at least 8 men. "What does he want?" Zara asked, though she already knew the answer. "You," Travis said grimly. "He's come to finish what he started." Outside, Reed's voice carried clearly in the pre-dawn stillness. "James, I know you're in there. Send out the Lawson girl, and we'll leave peacefully. Otherwise, we'll burn this place to the ground, just like hers." Zara felt her blood run cold. "I can't let him hurt you or destroy your home," she whispered. "Not after everything you've done for me." "I'm not giving you up," Travis replied fiercely. "We stand together." Oscar cleared his throat. "Sheriff Parker's with them," he reported. "Says he has a warrant for Miss Lawson's arrest, claiming she stole that loan document from his office." Travis's face darkened with anger. "That's a trumped-up charge, and he knows it." "It's enough to give them legal cover for what they're doing," Oscar pointed out. Travis thought for a moment, then turned to Zara. "Do you trust me?" he asked, his eyes intense. "With my life," she replied without hesitation. He nodded, decision made. "Oscar, help me to the porch. Zara, stay inside until I call for you." Despite her misgivings, Zara agreed, watching anxiously from the window as Travis, supported by Oscar, made his way onto the porch. Even wounded, he cut an imposing figure, his revolver held casually at his side. "Reed," he called out, his voice carrying across the yard. "You're trespassing on my property." Reed, mounted on a black stallion at the head of his group, smiled coldly. "I've got the law on my side this time, James. Sheriff Parker has a warrant for the girl." Parker shifted uncomfortably in his saddle, but nodded in confirmation. "She stole official documents from my office. It's a serious offense." "That's a lie, and you know it," Travis replied evenly. "But if you want to play it legal, fine. Judge Wilson is already investigating Reed for arson and intimidation. I sent a telegram to the territorial marshal yesterday after your men tried to kill us on the road." This was news to Zara, and apparently to Reed as well, whose confident expression faltered slightly. "You're bluffing," Reed said, but there was a note of uncertainty in his voice. "Am I?" Travis replied. "Wilson has the loan agreement. He's already determined that your claim to the Lawson property is questionable at best, and now you've added attempted murder and false arrest to your crimes." Reed's face contorted with rage. "I don't care about some judge. The girl owes me money, and I aim to collect one way or another." "The debt was her father's, not hers," Travis countered. "And even if it was legitimate, which I doubt, she doesn't have to pay it with her land or her freedom." "Then what do you propose?" Reed sneered. Travis straightened, ignoring the pain in his shoulder. "I'll pay it," he stated firmly. $500 plus reasonable interest. In return, you leave Miss Lawson and her father's land alone for good." A stunned silence fell over the yard. Zara felt her heart constrict at Travis's offer. $500 was a significant sum money he'd been saving to expand his herd and improve the ranch. Reed studied Travis for a long moment, clearly weighing his options. The mention of the territorial marshal had shaken him. Legal scrutiny was the last thing a man with his business practices needed. $700, Reed finally said. Cash, by noon today, and the girl signs a release stating she has no claims against me. Deal, Travis agreed without hesitation. Sheriff Parker will witness the transaction and the signing at the bank in town. Reed nodded curtly, then wheeled his horse around. Noon, he repeated. Don't be late. With that, he and his men rode off, leaving a cloud of dust in their wake. As soon as they were gone, Zara rushed onto the porch, her face pale with shock. Travis, you can't. That's your savings, your future. Travis smiled tiredly, the strain of standing evident in his face. Money can be earned back, he said simply. Some things are irreplaceable. His knees buckled then, the excitement and exertion too much for his injured body. Oscar and Zara caught him before he could fall, helping him back inside to his bed. You're a fool, boss, Oscar said, but there was respect in his voice. A noble fool. Get the money from the safe, Travis instructed. You'll need to take it to town with Miss Lawson to meet Reed. I'll do no such thing, Zara protested. You're not giving up your savings for me. Travis caught her hand, his grip surprisingly strong. Zara, listen. This isn't just about the money. It's about ending this legally and permanently. Once Reed signs a receipt acknowledging full payment of your father's debt and you sign a mutual release, he'll have no more hold over you. Your father's land will be yours again. Tears welled in Zara's eyes. But at such a cost to you. A cost I'm willing to pay, he said softly. Because I love you, Zara Lawson. I think I have, since the moment I found you standing in the ashes of your home, refusing to be broken by what had happened to you. The words hung in the air between them, honest and vulnerable. Oscar quietly excused himself, leaving them alone. You love me? Zara whispered, hardly daring to believe what she'd heard. Travis nodded, suddenly looking uncertain. I know it's fast, and I know I have no right to expect you to feel the same way. But when I told you that you could live in my home forever, I meant it. Not as my housekeeper, but as my partner. My wife, if you'll have me. Joy, pure and overwhelming, flooded through Zara. I love you too, she said, her voice trembling with emotion. I think I started falling for you that first night, when you cooked me breakfast and treated me with respect, when I had nothing to offer in return. Travis's smile was radiant despite his pain. You had everything to offer, he corrected gently. Your courage, your kindness, your strength. You made this house a home, Zara. You gave me something I thought I'd lost forever when my family died, hope for a future filled with love. Zara leaned down to kiss him, a kiss full of promise and tenderness. Then I accept, she whispered against his lips. I'll be your wife, Travis James, and we'll rebuild together your ranch, my father's land, our future. True to his word, Reed signed the necessary documents at the bank in White Ridge that noon, officially relinquishing all claims to Jacob Lawson's property in exchange for Travis's payment. Judge Wilson, who had insisted on being present, made certain every detail was legally binding. You're overpaying, the judge muttered to Zara, as Reed counted the money. The actual debt with legal interest would be no more than $600. It's worth it to be free of him, Zara replied, signing her name to the final document with a steady hand. As they left the bank, Zara felt as though a great weight had been lifted from her shoulders. For the first time since her father's death, she could look to the future without fear hanging over her. Travis was waiting for them at the ranch, pale but sitting up in a chair on the porch. His face lit up at the sight of Zara, and she rushed to his side, the papers clutched in her hand. It's done, she told him, kneeling beside his chair. Reed has no more claims on me or my father's land. Travis's smile was tired, but genuinely happy. Then you're free to choose your own path now, he said. Your own home. Zara took his hand, pressing it to her cheek. I've already chosen, she said softly. You said I could live in your home forever. I intend to hold you to that promise. 2 months later, on a crisp autumn day with the aspen trees turned gold in the Wyoming hills, Travis and Zara were married in the garden of their ranch. Judge Wilson performed the ceremony, and the entire town turned out to witness the union, partly out of curiosity, partly out of genuine affection for the couple who had stood against Zachary Reed and won. Travis, fully recovered from his wound, stood tall and proud as he spoke his vows. Zara, radiant in her mother's restored wedding dress, promised to love him for all of her days. As they sealed their vows with a kiss, cheers erupted from the assembled guests. Travis pulled back slightly, his forehead resting against hers. "Welcome home, Mrs. James," he whispered. Zara smiled, her heart full to bursting. "I've been home since the day you found me," she replied. "Home isn't a place, it's where love lives." In the years that followed, Travis and Zara built a life together that exceeded both their dreams. They combined their properties, creating one of the most prosperous ranches in the territory. They welcomed children, first twins, a boy and a girl, followed by another son, 2 years later, filling their home with laughter and love. Reed eventually left the territory after the territorial marshal began investigating his business practices, his influence waning as others found the courage to stand against him. And on quiet evenings, when the children were asleep and the work of the day was done, Travis and Zara would sit together on their porch, watching the stars come out over the land they had fought to protect. "Do you ever regret it?" Zara asked one such evening, nestled against her husband's side. "Spending your savings to pay off Reed?" Travis's arm tightened around her shoulders. "Not for a single moment," he replied, pressing a kiss to her temple. "It was the best investment I ever made." Zara smiled, thinking of all they had built together from the ashes of what they had lost. "When you told me I could live in your home forever," she mused, "did you have any idea what that would lead to?" Travis chuckled, the sound rumbling pleasantly against her ear. "I hoped," he admitted. "From that first moment, I hoped." As the moon rose over their valley, casting silver light across the land that had witnessed both their darkest moments and their greatest joys, Zara silently thanked the twist of fate that had brought this man to her when she had lost everything. For in losing her father's home, she had found something far more precious, a love that would shelter her heart forever.